So guess what just came in literally right before you sat down? Just came via mail to my front door.
It's not. I don't know. Physical copy of something.
Physical copy for sure.
All right.
It's a movie. I'll tell you
It
that.
is a movie. Okay, it's Blu-ray.
Yep. This might help you. It's a double. It's a double feature.
It's not the Titanic on Blu-ray, is it? I mean,
It's
we were just talking
not,
Titanic.
It's definitely not the Titanic. I'll tell you that.
I don't know if it's 2 DVDs. I don't know. That's my. I don't know. I was gonna say Interstellar, but I know you don't like. You got a thing with Interstellar, so. Ooh shit! Oh hell yeah!
Twister's
OG,
double feature,
yeah.
the OG one and the new one. Had to cop it. Had to cop it.
You know, Twisters did not do. I only heard this. I've not researched or anything, but I heard that Twisters did not do well internationally.
That does not surprise me at all.
Domestically, it went off.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think it was fans world. We weren't many fans worldwide.
That's like the most.
It's the most Americana movie.
Yeah, it's the most generic American movie you can think of. In Oklahoma, like people outside of the United States probably don't even know what Oklahoma is. They probably don't even know that place actually exists.
Right.
So it's definitely a uniquely American thing. Also, did you see the college football rankings that just came out? Literally right before we started this. So your alma mater is, for some reason, nobody in the country knows why. They are number 11. So they're in the college football playoff. And
well, so they're like, are they saying they're guaranteed in? Even
they're guaranteed
regardless?
in. Yeah.
Baby, roll.
They're playing Notre Dame in Notre Dame. So
dude,
it's gonna be a tough one for them. I'll tell you that much.
Well, how concrete are these games? Because Texas is playing Georgia, and like loser would likely go to a lower seed, right?
Yeah. So what they're saying is that any of the teams, I think this is kind of fucked, but any of the teams that are not playing this coming weekend, their rank will not change at all.
So they're locking.
So those are solidified. Now, as for Texas and Georgia, if one of them, if Texas loses, I believe they could drop into where Georgia is now.
Okay.
But it's not really set. They haven't really solidified like kind of where everybody will end up in those conference championships. The only thing that's set in stone is, so ASU plays Iowa in the Big 12 championship. ASU or Iowa, they have to win to get in because they're 15 and 16. But their win guarantees them a spot. So obviously, hopefully ASU wins. But if ASU wins, here's the kicker: they have to go play Penn State in Penn State. So it's going to be a cold weather game for the old Arizona boys.
Oh yeah,
if they make it. But I'm really excited, man. I hope they can make it.
Yeah, I mean, there's some storylines already because, like, if I remember correctly, the last time Alabama played Notre Dame might have been in the national championship beatdown. So like they're going to be motivated. Bama's motivated, so it's just who executes. We'll see, but that's exciting. I didn't even know.
What's really funny is ASU was projected to finish last place in the Big 12 at the beginning of this year. So they were projected to have like one win, I think. And here we are playing in the Big 12 championship. So shout out to the fucking Sun Devils, baby. Forks up.
Yeah. Bring it on. We'll see. It's going to be interesting to watch it play out.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Totally Biased Music. It's Blake and Anthony. It's just a duo episode today because Trey's Mr. Busy Guy. So busy, too busy for us. Yeah. So it's just us. We're doing Jar of Flies by Alice in Chains and then Scream, 2022 Scream, which I'm excited to get into. So Anthony, you picked Jar of Flies. So give us a little rundown of why you picked it while I turn my fan on.
So Alice in Chains is like, when people think of grunge, people think Nirvana, they think Alice in Chains, they think Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, the big hitters. But to me, Alice in Chains is like my grunge band. Like that is the band that resonated with me mostly when we were younger. And a couple songs on this album have just forever rang in my head. And I probably didn't listen to this album, which is turned 30 this January of 2024. So 30-year-old album. For me, I probably listened to it, I would say in college. So like middle school would have been when I first was turned on to Alice in Chains. And college was the first time I really dove into like their work, and Jar of Flies is one that like is if you played this for someone and said, this is like one of the biggest grunge bands ever, they might be a little like weirded out, because it's a mostly acoustic album, a lot of like analog instrumentation, still heavy strings, still heavy as fuck, this album is, but not your traditional grunge album. But for me, when I think of what grunge is as a whole, this album still comes to my mind because it's so dreamlike, it's so heavy in the lyrical sense and in the instrumentation sense, and it's super simple. I think there's a lot of cool things that are done throughout this album, and I think it kind of goes to the roots of the individuals involved in the band. This was the first, I found out this more recently, but this was the first album with this new bass player, Mike Inez. Mike Starr was the original bass player, and he had a lot of issues. And he left the band. I can't remember if he came back or not, but this was like a new venture for the band. So really excited to talk about it. Was curious, had you listened to this album before?
No, I hadn't, surprisingly. And I haven't listened to a lot of Alice in Chains, which is I'm disappointed in myself because
When you
Alice
come
in
across this,
Chains, yeah, is fucking great. And I think that, I mean, obviously they have the Unplugged album, which I believe you and Christian might have done
Yeah, we
together.
did.
Yeah, and I was out for that one, but yeah, kind of like, I don't know. I feel like they don't get mentioned enough with those grunge bands of the late 80s, early 90s, going into the 90s, and maybe that's just kind of the circles that I'm in, but I feel like they deserve more appreciation and more, more credit for their role they played in that genre as well. And Jar of Flies is super interesting because it's so short, like it's so short and to the point, fucking 30 minutes. And like
Yeah.
first off, the opening track is like 30% of the album because the opening track is 7 minutes long and it's only a 30-minute album. But it's a very, like you said, it's interesting because it's not grunge music that you would think of in the sense of like Nirvana, right? Or
Right.
even if people were to consider, Audio Slave grunge music, which I would. It doesn't feel like that, but it still feels like grunge music. It's like a subsect of grunge music. And yeah, I mean, I went into it knowing who Alice in Chains were and listening to Alice in Chains prior to this, just not Jar of Flies. So I knew what I was getting into. But the opening track to me really kind of sets the tone, which we'll get into later. But I thought it was a great pick. We did last time we did a duo episode, we did the Shabuzi album, which is short.
Right.
It was like 35 minutes or something like that. So, not as much content, but still a lot to talk about with it, and a lot to talk about with Alice in Chains in the 90s as a whole. I'm curious, where do you, so you would say this is your favorite quote unquote grunge band?
Yeah.
This is
Alice
your
in Chains,
Nirvana for me.
Exactly. Yeah. It is just, Lane, I think, does it. I mean, so Alice in Chains in my mind is like this hybridization between Lane Staley, who's the vocalist, and then Jerry Cantrell, who's the lead guitarist and also a big writing part of Alice in Chains. And those two together, you get these really bluesy influences. And I bet you felt that a lot throughout this album. You get a lot of hurt within Lane, like the way his voice is. His voice is along the lines of Kurt and all these big time grunge vocalists, where it's not a traditional singing voice, but there is none like them.
Right.
And to me, Lane's voice always just really hit home to me. But yeah, I would say like Alice in Chains is my number one for sure. And then it gets weird because I like some of Pearl Jam, but I don't love all of Pearl Jam. I love some of Soundgarden, and I don't love all of Soundgarden. Nirvana, in a similar case, I like a lot of Nirvana, but not all of Nirvana. Probably more of them, and they have a decent catalog too. But for me, Alice in Chains is up there. Now, there are some cool spin-off bands. We've done Temple of the Dog before. Supergroup, with some pieces from here and there. There's another supergroup worth listening to called Mad Season. I almost said Mother Love Bone. Mother Love Bone, the OG grunge group, where a lot of people got their influences. But Mad Season is a band, and I can't remember the where everyone came from, but I know Lane is the lead vocalist, and there's one album that came out, and they did a live show at the Moore that's recorded too. So Mad Season is worth listening to. But I think it just speaks just how diverse these artists really are. I think that they're overlooked a lot because of this Nirvana spotlight. I think Kurt
Yeah.
and his story, and Dave Grohl and these guys who are still performing really kind of take that spotlight out of that era. But Lane Staley and what these guys were able to do back then it's still powerful. It still speaks volumes, and I think I think it will forever impact generations, just musically and sonically too.
Yeah.
It's really well done.
Well, I think that like it's not that like if you look at grunge music from a mainstream standpoint, which is funny to even say because grunge music is not a mainstream
like
type of music,
yeah.
right? Is to be not that, but like from a mainstream standpoint, like yeah, Nirvana is always going to hold that spotlight. But I think people that really listen to music, rock music, grunge music in particular, appreciate Alice in Chains for who they are and what they did. They're not, it's not like some unheard of grunge band that deserves more they probably deserved more recognition than they got, but they still got a lot of recognition, right? Like they're still popular enough to where people know the name Alice in Chains, right? It's not going to have the same broad, wide stream, like mainstream appeal that the name Nirvana is going to have, right? But it's still, to their credit, still a huge staple in that genre, right? You can't really talk about this era of music and this era of grunge music without mentioning Alice in Chains. You wouldn't be doing it justice if you did that,
Right.
And I don't know, I don't know enough about Alice in Chains. I need to listen to, more of their albums, but like, do you know what their biggest album is? Like, what is their Nevermind,
I mean, it's kind of debatable because this, if you want to even call it an album, it's kind of like an EP. Sap is another EP. Dirt, I think, is probably the most renowned album, and I think that might have Rooster, it might have Wood, Angry Chair. I mean, I could be mistaken because
It does have Rooster. It does have Rooster. It does have Angry Chair. It does have Wood.
There you go. Yeah. So that's probably Them Bones. Is Them Bones on that album too?
No.
Okay, that might have been.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. It's the opening track.
So
opening track.
Dirt, I would say, yeah, it's probably the biggest one. There's another album. I think it's self-titled. It's known as the Three-Legged Dog album. That's just kind of the cover artwork. That's a good one too. But for me, I mean, this little baddie Jar of Flies like sits above all of it because it's so compact and it's so like pure. I don't know. It's hard to compare this to the other albums because everything is just more, it's deeper, like it's just more to digest versus this thing, which I've struggled finding anything that I would change out of it. But yeah, Dirt's probably the biggest thing. But Alice in Chains was, I would say, they got a lot of radio airplay, which definitely helps their case out. And to their credit, they're still performing today. Damon Duvall is the new lead singer, and I think was a really good, quote, replacement for Lane. Lane obviously passed away, but Damon Duvall does the sound justice and the performance justice. He has more of a like a Lenny Kravitz vibe to me, but like it's still dark. It's still Alice in Chains, And then, like I said, Jerry Cantrell is the musician, like the craftsman behind it all, and he's still putting out stuff, and his solo work is really good too. So like he has a lot of this kind of bluesy grunge feel in his solo discography too. So he's worth listening to as well.
Nice. Mm-hmm. Well, with that being said, let's get into the top tracks. You lead us off. What do you got?
All right, so
I know there's only 7 songs on here, so
it could be top 7, right? Yeah. But I figured out a way to do this. So like my number 3 track is only because I didn't hear it until I listened to this album the first time, however long ago it was, and it's Whale and Wasp. Like it's purely instrumental, the only instrumental track on this album. But God, the emotions that it goes through, and just the way that they're stretching sounds out, and it's just kind of piercing, but it's not overpowering. It's like a perfect blend of like just sounds escalating and de-escalating and blending together. So that song is something that like I play for people without telling them who it is. And they're like, oh my gosh, this is really interesting. Like, going places, you know. And you
Yeah.
tell them it's Alice in Chains, and you're like, holy shit, like didn't even realize they could produce something like this, you know.
Yeah.
But I wrote, you know, they just let the instruments sing on this track, which it says a lot to say that, you know, a track not even truly featuring Lane's vocals is that powerful, but they do it.
Yeah.
And I will say, I think Lane does play guitar. I don't think he plays guitar on this album, but he does play guitar in the live setting too. Um, but so Whale and the Wasp, number 3, Whale and Wasp. Number 2, I've kind of joined Rotten Apple and Nutshell. You know, the first 2 tracks on this album really, I just can't not include one or the other. I mean, both are super beautiful.
Yeah.
And I mean, the heaviness, like I said earlier, the haunting vocals that Lane throws in these tracks are just, you know, they do ring in your head, you know, after the fact. And that's that musical residue that I think is just super powerful. And it just speaks for the impact that he can have, that one human can have through their voice too, is just blowing people away still to this day.
Yeah.
So Rotten Apple and Nutshell are my second tracks. And then number 1, because this was when I was young, this was you know, Christian loves Rooster. Like he will talk about Rooster and in reference to his dad and like how he was introduced to it. And I love that for him. But for me, I Stay Away was always the track that like I wanted to play again, you know?
Yeah.
And super powerful. It's really like a blend of this kind of like, if you took typical grunge sound and then blended it with kind of the concept of this album being stripped back, you get a track like that. I think it's just a perfect balance between the two. And if you look up the music video for I Stay Away, it is it's a full stop motion claymation piece
Nice.
of art. So like that alone puts it up there for me. But that song is just one that I'll forever be in love with. So I Stay Away is my number 1 track.
Very nice. Yeah, so I had honestly we're very similar in a lot of this. So number 3 for me was Whale and Wasp as well. So I just thought it was really, really interesting to have an instrumental song on this album. Like I can't picture Nirvana doing this or Pearl Jam or, you know, maybe I could see Audioslave doing it, but I can't really picture anybody else like having the balls to strip what is like so much of grunge music to me is the vocals in the sense of like the way that those bands lead singers sing and the voice that they have and the iconic sounds. Now like there is very iconic instrumental moments with all of those bands too, like the intro to Smells Like Teen Spirit the entire fucking world knows, you know,
Right.
but like Kurt is what made that band. So I just feel like it's so ballsy to have a song on this album with no vocals. You know, I thought that was like take away like just the beauty of the song and how much I like it. Just the desire to go with that type of track on an album like this, I thought was really fucking cool. And it wasn't something that I expected, you know. And there's when you go into it blind, you're kind of waiting for that other shoe to drop. You're like, when are the vocals gonna come in?
Right,
and then it just ends, you know, and that's the end of that journey, and you're on to the next one. And so I really, really enjoy it. And it's like the thing I got from this and the song I'll talk about in a second is this eerie vibe that it has to it, right? Like we always talk about teleporting ourselves to certain places when you're listening to a song or like where you could imagine it, but it's just like I don't know, it's just an interesting world that it takes you to almost, you know.
Yeah, a dark one for sure.
Yeah. And then number 2 for me was Nutshell. So Nutshell was very much like sums up what you were saying at the beginning of having like an acoustic grunge album, which before Unplugged, right? That didn't really seem possible, but Nutshell is like the perfect example of an acoustic grunge song. It still sounds grungy to me, even though it's a very laid back,
it's like a
song,
ballad, you know?
right? It still has like just heavy strumming, like deep dark notes to it that still make it feel like a grunge song, which I love that so much about it. And like there's just something about, you know, and I need to listen to their Unplugged album because I haven't listened to it, but something
they
about
don't do a lot of these tracks on that Unplugged album. I don't believe so. I can pull up the track list while you're talking, but that was the one thing that I remember when Christian and I were talking. I was like, "Damn, I can't wait to bring Jar of Flies into this because that's where
Yeah.
the real jammers are."
Yeah. But it's just so like, I don't know.
Or
There's something.
Nutshell. Nutshell is on there. I
Oh,
should say
nice.
it's the opening track, but it's the only one from this
Jar of
album that's
Flies.
on that.
That's crazy. Yeah. There's just something really special about grunge music done like this. It's a certain type of vibe that doesn't normally, that you wouldn't think would work well with grunge music, but they make it work, and I really appreciate that about Nutshell. And then number one for me, Rotten Apple.
Oh
Rotten
yeah,
Apple is just like, holy fuck, what an intro track, man. The guitar is weeping. It's
yeah.
weeping and screaming. It's just like, that's what, and like, I love a good electric guitar moment in a song, and like take apart, the vocals coming in like a minute in and really sucking you into his voice and his sound, but just that guitar weeping throughout like the very beginning, throughout the whole song, it's just a journey, man. It makes me feel like riding down a desolate highway, like the
Hmm.
apocalypse is happening, everything is burning, and you're just riding solo, maybe on the bike, maybe on a motorcycle, and you're listening to Rotten Apple. Like, it's just there's such an interesting vibe to it, and the instrumentation is flawless, man. It just really transports you into a world, and I would love to like play this song for people that have never heard it and have them paint like a scenario. Where do you see yourself right now? What do you see when you're listening to this? Because I don't know, it's really interesting. So I just really love that song.
I think that's such a synesthesia kind of approach to listening to music. How music can highlight other senses. Like when you smell a smell and it transports you to a place. You hear a sound, it transports you to a place. And I think that, yeah, you're right on point too with this kind of like, yeah, kind of post-apocalyptic feel, but it's not as dramatic as like a Mad Max approach would be,
Right.
right? It's
Right.
more like you're kind of coming out of a cave, and then it's like you're just drinking it all in.
Yeah.
And there is a line in there, Lane's like, "What I see is unreal." I've written my own part. He's a narrator, of an
Yeah.
experience, and I think it still translates 30 years later.
Yeah. 100%. It kind of reminded me of Change by Deftones, Change,
Yeah.
House of Flies. Like that's kind of a similar vibe that I get from this song. But okay, on to bottom tracks. Do you have any? If so, what are they?
I do not have any bottom tracks. So yeah, that's kind of how it goes for me. But I'll say this, I didn't talk about the last two tracks on this album, Don't Follow and Swing on This. If you're a blues fan, which I know you are a blues fan, you get your fix there. And like Don't Follow is such a cool song because it's the way it's structured. It's really kind of serene in the middle, and it kind of builds, and then it gets into this kind of harmonica, like rockabilly kind of bluesy jam, and then it goes right back into the serenity of that track.
Right.
So, and I think the blues is much more driven by Jerry Cantrell. Like I say, he's a beyond talented guitarist, but I think he had a lot of blues upbringing, which then kind of bleeds into the Alice in Chains kind of formula. So,
Yeah. I
yeah, no
thought it
bottom
was
tracks. Hmm.
I thought it was like there's like a vibe switch that happens in Don't Follow towards the
Yeah,
end. It's like 2 minutes and 50 seconds in. It kind of, the vibe changes like pretty drastically to me,
yeah,
which I thought was super interesting. Like, it wasn't a negative thing. I just thought it was it was an interesting change, like in that song.
yeah. You have
For
any
me,
bottoms?
yeah, I have one, and you're going to hate this, Anthony, but it's I Stay Away, man.
Oh, oh.
I
Had you heard this song before?
No,
Oh,
and
wow.
I think what the problem was going from Rotten Apple to
Yeah,
Nutshell to I Stay Away. Like, had I listened to it isolated, maybe if it had been brought as a Rides or Dies, I think I would have liked it. But like, I think I just hold Rotten Apple and Nutshell so high up that the
that's
next
interesting.
song that came was like, I don't know, it was just kind of jarring to me. I think especially coming from Nutshell, because Nutshell is so much calmer. But yeah, it was just jarring in a way that I didn't really like. So it kind of just set me back a little bit, you
Yeah.
know. But that's really all I have. Like everything else, there's something about, you know, there's even parts of that song that I like, right? Every song on this album has a piece of it that I enjoy. But yeah, I Stay Away was just kind of towards the bottom for me. But other than
You
that,
know,
nothing.
it's so interesting. You know, you've the your life experience is so interesting to me because, you know, we got to do Saw a couple weeks ago, right? And realized that movie's 20 years old, and the twist had not been spoiled for you, which is
Yeah.
like that doesn't happen, right?
Yeah.
And like for you to hear I Stay Away in the guts of this album for the first time is equally as interesting to me because like that's the radio airplay song of this album for sure. I mean, without a doubt, you know.
You
But
think?
like 100 of this album for sure.
Yeah.
But like of the Alice in Chains discography, Rooster is for sure at the top, and then Wood and Man in the Box is up there too.
Yeah.
But that I can I mean I can 100% see that take too because it is like a detour or somewhat of a detour within the album, right? And then it
Right.
kind of comes back with Whale and or No Excuses, Whale and Lost, um but that's the difference, you know, is I kind of grew up with that song versus it coming in the midst of that. So yeah, I get it, but it might grow on you.
Yeah. I think so too.
If you find an instrumental of that song, that's worth listening to, and then bringing it back to hearing the OG version with Lane's vocals because there's some beautiful, beautiful strings on that album or on that
Yeah.
song. You know, violin strings that are just like they're Alice in Chains throwing violins out here. You know,
Yeah.
they're bringing it. So
Well, I think what's really interesting is like that just like shows you how much content there is, you know, musically, cinema wise, television. There's so much content that, you know, years after this stuff being released, you know, I haven't had any exposure to it, you know, and I knew people that as big as Breaking Bad or Game of Thrones was, I had friends that had no idea anything about the ending, anything that had happened years after those shows finished, which like to me is mind blowing how you could not know the end of Breaking Bad or
well,
know
that's
what
me.
happens in Breaking Bad.
That's me. I mean, both of those shows you mentioned, I haven't seen. Same with Sopranos, and that's the one that gets the biggest reaction.
Right.
Typically, is Sopranos because I constantly am getting references or people talking about it or about certain characters or certain deaths, and I'm still oblivious to it all. And I
Right.
don't know. It's kind of a weird, you know, like thing that I like is just to have this mystery that's there that I could go into at any point, you know, because I've kind of stayed on the outside of it.
But you're not like a long term, you're not a big show guy,
I
right? Like
used to
long
be. I used to
you
be. It's
but
just
you fell
now.
off.
Well, now I see it as such a time commitment that I'm like, fuck, I don't know when I can go into it. Like I can do a season of something like all the hauntings of Hill House, all the like those are
Yeah, the
the
limited
things that
series.
that I can get into. But when I see Sopranos, you know, however 7 seasons sitting there, Breaking Bad, how many seasons is that?
So it's 5 and the fifth one was broken up. It's like 16 episodes of the fifth season.
Yeah, so that's there too, and I have no doubt that I would thoroughly love those shows. You know, I need another pandemic to happen.
Yes.
I told myself at the beginning of the pandemic I was gonna go into those shows, and then I just sidetracked myself with other shit. So story of my life right there.
Yeah, it happens. Well, I would say if you're going to before we close this off, if you're gonna watch a show, like binge watch a drama series, Peaky Blinders it's 5 seasons, but the seasons are only 6 episodes long.
Okay.
So they're very short, and I think you would like it. And the movie's about to come out. So the movie is the finale. It's the end, and that's always been their
Oh,
plan is to end with a movie. And they're in production right now, so I would obviously love to bring that, but like it's not gonna make any sense to you at all if you haven't seen the show.
now that's one thing that I will do is I will go in expectance of something else. You know, I did that for Alien, and I'll do that for Planet of the Apes. I'll do it for things. You know,
Yeah,
so all right,
that's fair.
okay, we'll see what happens.
Well, surprisingly, I don't see any reviews for Jar of Flies, so I think it's just on us. I think it's just
Well,
us to give
I'll
our
give
rankings.
I'll give a little tidbit that I read off of Wikipedia earlier today about the title "Jar of Flies." Did you find any info on that?
No.
Okay, so this is kind of cool. So Jerry Cantrell takes the credit for giving it the name Jar of Flies based off of a science experiment he did in third grade, or just an experiment in third grade. And the experiment was to have two jars filled with flies, one that was overfed and one that was underfed. And the story goes, the jar with the flies that was overfed, started obviously populating rapidly, and they would die of starvation, or some issue happened that it was not they would started to die because there was just too many flies in there. The flies that were underfed lived for like a year or something after the fact. So I think it didn't say this part, but I can kind of infer that it's like it's when you are stripping things down, when you're undersupplied, sometimes you can thrive. And that's kind of what this album feels like. They're taking steps back from the ways that they would perform shows and put together something like this, and it soars. At least for me, it does.
Yeah, 100%.
Kind of cool.
Also, I lied. There is a Rolling Stone review. So out of 5, what do you think they gave it?
They didn't give it a 5. I'll say 4. But hoping on something.
They gave it a 4. They gave it a 4.
Hell yeah.
So pretty highly rated. All right, what do you got?
10, man. I mean, this is one of those 10 out of 10s that I had in my pocket waiting to come out, and like perfect timing, I think. Glad to have brought it to you and to the world if they hadn't heard this. But yeah, Jar of Flies, 10 out of 10 for me.
Fuck yeah. I give it a 9. I think it's fucking fantastic. I think it's really, really good. Obviously, totally biased because it's my type of music. Like, I love grunge music. So I'm obviously going to be kind of biased towards that. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. So great pick. I'm glad you brought it. Glad we had the opportunity to do it, kind of sneak it in here.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think Trey would really like this album too. So Trey, if you're listening, throw it on there.
I think so too. All right, let's get into Rides or Dies. So we both picked a Blink-182 song. I'll start. So
fuck yeah.
I picked All the Small Things, and the reason I picked it was because Spotify Wrapped is coming out tomorrow, and they sent me a thing probably 2 weeks ago that was like, hey, Wrapped is about to come out. Why don't you get ready by reviewing your top songs of 2022 and 2023? And for some reason, All the Small Things was one of my most played songs in 2022. I don't know why. Like, I don't know what was, because that's not a new song to me. It wasn't a new song in 2022. So I don't know what I was doing that like compelled me to listen to it so much.
Can you recall listening to it? Like, I mean, like,
but
is this one like
that's the thing. Like, I don't know. Maybe that was just the vibe I was going with in 2022. So I was just listening, and when it came up, I was like, I kind of did a double take. I was like, what the fuck? Did I like jump off this playlist for some reason? But no, it was one of my top songs. So I rinsed it again, and man, what a classic. I wish Trey were here for us both picking a Blink song because he's a fucking Blink dick rider.
Exactly. Trey loves Blink-182. So like, this is kind of our little showcase to Trey. Like, we could hang. We can hang with some Blink.
True. We get down with whiny music. Like, it's not just him.
Yeah.
But what'd you think? What'd you think of All the Small Things?
It definitely rides. I can remember fragments of this music video when I was a kid, but like the storyline itself, like she took my clothes off, it's like I don't know when that song came out, but I must have been like 12 or 13 probably.
It was 15 years ago.
All right, so
was that 2009?
Yeah, but that means I was like 17, so I don't.
That's when the music video came out, at least.
Okay, but when the album came out?
Maybe the actual album was earlier than that.
My guess is like 2007.
Trey's gonna be so disappointed in us for not knowing off the top of our head when Blink
2002,
2003.
2003. Okay, yeah. So 12
no, because it's an Enema Estate, so 1999 actually.
Oh god.
Yeah.
All right. 8-year-old Anthony is like, what the hell song is this? Because it has everything that I'm like trying to figure out life about,
Yeah.
Romance and all the other things. So yeah, song definitely rides.
Fuck yeah. All right, what do you got?
So my Blink-182 song is a track called Feeling This. So this is one, I fucking love this song. Travis Barker's drumming in this song is phenomenal because of the pace change. Like echoed many times on this podcast, I get off on fast to slow. You know, tempo change in rhythm is what hooks me, and I think that in a live setting is like the most contagious thing, where you're in rhythm and in sync with the producer, with the artist, and then you can anticipate a tempo shift. And this song does a great job. And I love, like I said, the drum breakdowns in this. They do some interesting stuff with the vocals towards the end of this song, but yeah, I'm big fan of this track right here. So what'd you think?
So this was off of their self-titled album, which came out. Do you want to guess when that came out?
90. Well, is it before or after?
After Inamo State.
Okay, so then I'll say 2002.
It was 2003.
Okay.
But yeah, so you know what's really fun? First off, the song rides, obviously.
Hell yeah.
But like, and Travis Barker's a great drummer, and Travis Barker also has an album. I don't know if you listened to that album. Yeah.
Can a drummer get some?
Yeah.
Something like that.
But like, this song is. This song is so early 2000s whiny. Just the way vocals. That it, it's just, I'm right now, I'm feeling it. Like, it's so fucking whiny, but like, that's their thing, man. And it works for Blink. It works for Blink 182, you know?
Well, and like the way that, who's that? Tom DeLonge?
Yeah.
The way he's singing those vocals, like, but like it leads to that.
Yeah,
you know, that Travis Barker comes into, and like that is like the blend that really sets it off. And if they had more music that kind of gave me that impact, shit, I'd be a dick rider too.
Yeah,
you know? But like if this is all I got, it's still worth.
Trey's, I guarantee you, when Trey sees what the Rise or Dies are, that he's gonna message us and be like, "Why the fuck would you guys do this on the episode? I'm not." He's
gonna think we're shitting on it. He's gonna think we're shitting on it, but when he listens, he's gonna be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, very true. All right, well, that was Rise or Dies. So now we're getting into Scream 2022. So this is the 5th Scream in the series. And look, spoilers ahead. So if you haven't seen this movie, I would turn off the pod, go listen to something else. First off, I would go watch all of the Screams because they're phenomenal, right? But you do have to watch the prior Screams, at least the first 2, to understand kind of some of the stuff going on in this one. But yeah, this came out in 2022. So this is Jenna Ortega's first one. And the other, I can't remember the other main actresses.
Mikey Madison is one. There's a couple.
Yeah, Mikey Madison, and then Melissa Barrera, I think is how you say her name. So she's a recurring character in the following
the new girl.
Yeah. But yeah, so essentially the premise of this Scream is a requel. So, and they make several jokes about it being a requel, but it's all as you guys know, if you've watched Scream, you know, they're very meta, very, you know, poke fun at, you know, in Scream 1 or in Scream 2, everybody's watching Stab 1 in the movie theater, which is a spinoff of Scream 1, and so on and so forth. And so the premise of this one is a requel, and so there's a moment where they all get together and they're trying to define the requel rules. You know, what does it say about a requel? Who can die? Who can't die? Who's the suspected killer? Things of that nature. And then they tie in Billy Loomis, the original killer from Scream 1, in this one as well. But man, I love all the Screams, so obviously I'm super biased, but like I would rank this probably as my third. Like I would go Scream 1, Scream 2, and then this Scream, and then 3, 4, and the ones after that are somewhere jumbled up in there. But Amanda like hadn't seen any of the Screams, so we started mid-October and just blew through like all of them. Yeah, and she loves all of them and really liked this one. So I thought I would bring it and see what she thought of it.
Yeah, I love the Scream movies. I haven't seen 3 and 4 to my knowledge. And I want to say I hadn't seen this one till now, but I had popped in to see like 6, I think, at least the first half of 6, sometime earlier this year, I believe. Did it come out this year? Scream 6?
No, it was last year, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I just had time to kill and was like, yeah, I'll go watch the first hour of it or so.
Yeah.
But like, huge fan of these movies. Scream is a scary movie for anyone to take in. You know, it's not like super horror. It's not going to keep you up at night, I don't think. But like with scary like horror movie lore surrounding these films, it takes a cake from a meta standpoint, you know?
Yeah.
Like I love just how they incorporate the old actors in this movie. You know,
Yep.
even the interpersonal relationships between David Arquette and Courtney Cox, like outside of the film universe, is still kind of bleeding into this too. You
Yeah.
know, and for me, you know, Scream. I saw Scream when I was in 6th grade, and this was at a house party, and this was the first time I ever made out with a girl, first time I ever touched skin, all during Scream. So like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, in a room
Nice.
full of people.
Yeah,
I
of
mean,
course.
yeah, you know, so like Scream holds a place in my heart, and like when they are all sitting in the living room watching the people on TV sitting in the living room
Yeah.
watching TV, you know, it's like
Yeah.
there's just layers to this, you know, that it just is so fucking cool. And Mikey Madison, she's a baddie. First off, I'll say something in a second about her, but the idea where she says "Welcome to Act 3" and just fucking starts fucking shit up. I'm like, all right, I can get down with that like needle drop point in a movie. The
Yeah.
only thing, and I didn't realize it till I didn't even think about it till the towards the end of the movie, was that if you're gonna have her in Ghostface's outfit, right? It's just that is the only thing that I find hard to believe because she's just super
So
short.
tiny. Yeah,
She's
so
tiny, you
tiny.
know, and you
Yeah.
can't like fool like she's too you can't kid
Right.
around with that, you know. But
Yeah.
overall, this movie's awesome. Love the references throughout this movie. I love that Jenna Ortega says her favorite movie is still The Babadook, which I watched actually a month ago for the first time, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, so love all the references throughout the movie. Love the kills are great.
Yep.
And
The
yeah, I
Dewey
mean this
kill is
is
so brutal, man. The Dewey
yeah.
kill is violent. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, and that's a character that a lot of people, you know, I think care for. All the characters I think are really cared for from fans of the franchise, you know, but
Yeah.
I think for what it does to like be able to take this series and move it forward in a specific direction or in a direction, I think it's a cool approach to it.
Yeah.
And for this movie being like a in tribute to Wes Craven too, I think is something that I think you know, Wes Craven, that's a guy who I think is, I mean, horror fans know him and love him and he's super appreciated, but like to the common film watcher, I mean, how much I wonder do they know about Wes Craven's influence just in films or horror films in general.
Right. Yeah, I
Yeah.
would be curious too. And like I think what's so iconic about Scream is like Ghostface is not it's never one person. Ghostface continues to evolve and be different people and different
Right.
like he'll never die because it's not he'll never die in the sense of Michael Myers who literally never dies, but he's one guy. Like that makes so much less sense than someone like Ghostface, right? And I love like I my favorite part about that movie is the fact that the killers are just fucking weird movie freaks that are like, no,
Yeah.
they didn't do
Yeah.
this justice. Let me do it. You know, that went over the top with it. Like, I think that's so that was such a creative way to do that. And I just love like there's so many good moments. And like Nev Campbell, which I didn't realize this. She's in House of Cards. She's in Lincoln Lawyer, the show on Netflix. Like she's in a lot of stuff. And I don't know how I didn't catch it prior to this, but I love the moment where like they reveal that they're in Stumacher's house and
Yeah.
like they zoom out and there's that eerie music and you realize where they are and you're kind of like, oh fuck,
Yeah.
this is bad, dude. You know,
Mhm.
but yeah, I think that like you know Wes Craven, and I would be interested to see how much he was involved in like the writing process and things of that nature if he was just directing. But Scream is just it's so iconic and it's so I love all slashers, right? That I do love those movies. I love Friday the 13th. I love, Nightmare on Elm Street, all those movies,
Mhm.
but Scream just does it so much better, and I think it's just directed better, it's written better, it's funny, it's scary, it's just really interesting. And the whole requel meta moment is just like peak Scream to me in this moment. I
Yeah.
love that moment when they're all sitting together and like having that conversation about where the rules apply and where they don't. I just think
Right.
it's great.
I think Scream is like the most self-aware franchise,
Yeah.
probably. Because I mean, it has no problem poking fun at itself or at things that they have done in the past. Or saying like, who cares about? I think there's some line or some reference in this movie about how like, you know, those last two were just garbage, you know, and then like this one, this is the real the next movie, you know, or whatever, something along those lines. But like that just it just, you know, it has something for all fans. But like if you're a big fan of these movies, like this one really does what I think you want it to.
Yeah, it's paying homage in a
Yeah.
really creative way, but also moving the franchise forward in a really creative way. And there's some like really unexpected moments, like the moment where the cop comes home and she's trying to like rush into to save her son. Right, you think he's gonna get killed in the shower, and then Ghostface pops out from behind the thing on the porch and stabs her. You're like, oh fuck!
All the false jump scares that they do, where like they're opening the fridge door and the tension zooms in and then nothing. You know, it's like it's again so self-aware, and people might think it's corny, but like that's old horror movies are super fucking corny, you know. And it's like this one really
part of
does.
their like that's part of their charm, you know.
Right, unless you're talking about elevated horror, which I'd not heard that term before till Jenna Ortega mentions it about like Hereditary and The Witch.
I'm so glad you brought that up
scene.
Because when she's talking about that, I'm like, this is Anthony. This would be Anthony if they called him and they're like, what's your favorite scary movie? Anthony's like, I don't know, man, like The Witch and Midsummer are up there, but like
I was literally thinking like that would be like my approach to it. I never heard that term elevated horror, but like, oh fuck, this movie is like talking to me right now and I'm about to get killed, you know, but she didn't get killed, so I was like, all right, cool.
Classic.
I think one other thing too, the new main girl, I don't know her name in real life, but I want to say literally when you picked this movie, I had searched Scream or something and it said that she got
Melissa
fired,
Barrera.
so she's not going to be in the next Scream movie.
Yeah, so there was I didn't know if I should bring that up or not, but essentially
is it real or is it heavy meta is my question.
They fired her over comments that she had made about the Palestinian people. Essentially, she showed support for the Palestinian people. And that was when all that stuff had first started happening. And like, look, I think it's ridiculous they would fire her over something like that. We're not going to get into that, but but it really worries me because like she is a staple in the franchise. Now she's supposed to be the new Sidney Prescott, essentially.
Right.
So, and the way they leave Scream 6 off, there's not really, I don't see a viable way to write her out. So I hope that they can fix whatever happened there and move past it, because I don't believe she deserved to be fired for what she said, right? Like, you can't pick and choose when actors are allowed to voice their political opinions, right? Like, that's not a fair way to do that. So I hope that they bring her back, but who knows? I would be really, really worried and hesitant to go see Scream 7 if she's not in it. I just don't see it being
I would
good.
bet that a lot of people feel the same way, you know, and especially nowadays where it's like, I mean, you could pick and choose your battles, but like at this point, you know, in 2024, I mean, people are gonna voice their opinions, and you may not agree with it, but like, how much weight do you put on that from an artistic standpoint outside of that fact? You know, she's not preaching on film, you know, so or whatever, you know, so. But okay, so you shine some light on that. I appreciate it.
It'll be interesting. All right, so next week Trey will be back, and what we're going to do. So Spotify Wrapped comes out tomorrow, Wednesday, because we're recording on Tuesday. So by the time you hear this, Spotify Wrapped will be out. So what we are going to do is me, Anthony, and Trey are going to go over our Spotify Wrapped, and then we're going to do top albums and movies we watched this year or that came out this year. And we haven't nailed down the logistics. That's going to be the overall
something like that.
That's going to be the
we'll
theme.
Figure it out.
That's going to be the theme of next week. So no album. We'll be talking about a number of things next week, so make sure to tune in for that one. And also, if you guys want, share your Spotify Wrapped with us. Show it, like tweet or send it on Instagram to the TBM Insta, or respond on one of the episode polls and just tell us what your tops were. Like, I'd be interested to hear kind of what other people are going for. So
fuck yeah.
But other than that, we will see you guys next week. Anthony, hang out for just a second, and then everybody else, we will catch you next week.
Peace.
Peace.